If you've got a job interview coming up, then this one's for you. My name's Lucy, by the way. I hope you enjoy watching. Amazing, you've got an interview. What I want to talk about now is the kind of steps to putting yourself in the best possible frame of mind and really prepared, ready to give the best interview of your life to get this job of your dreams. I think the number one thing here is that preparation. Make sure that you've really researched the company. I mean, hopefully you will have done this in order to submit your application, but research the company, research the role, research the people that will be interviewing you, try and find them on LinkedIn, find out a bit about them. Don't stalk them, don't necessarily connect with them because you don't know them. But just do your research. Do your background, just see, just be as prepared as you possibly can be. Try and understand in advance the likely issues that company is facing at the moment. So you kind of, you're already thinking yourself into being part of the team, working together to address those issues. And then the other piece is to go through that job description and person specification really carefully, and using those written notes that you've already made and the application and the cover letter that you've already got, prep your best examples again. By that I mean you have them almost listed experience by experience, skill by skill, so that when they ask you a question like, can you share an example of when you work successfully as a team, you've got some examples written down. And when I was going for jobs in the past, I had an exercise book and I had these written down, and I even would take that book with me. I wouldn't necessarily get it out of my bag, but it would be there, and it would mean that those examples would be front of my mind when they ask those questions, rather than me having to dredge up, oh gosh, when did I work as part of a team? Oh no, I can't remember. Is that I'd have my best examples, because otherwise the chances are that you won't necessarily have the best examples at the front of your mind. And if you haven't got the specific example because you haven't done that thing before, that doesn't matter. Think of things where you have demonstrated those skills and attributes, maybe not in work. If you're starting out new in your career, maybe this would be at college or in a sports team that you've played in or something. So maybe they're different examples, but just really prep them so that when they ask you the questions about tell me a time when you have demonstrated this skill, you've got something you can say which will stand you in good stead. And when you're prepping those examples, there's a methodology called the STAR methodology, which is S for situation, so explain what the context is. T for task, what was the thing you were doing. A for action, what was the action that you took. And R for result, so what was the result of what happened in the end. And try and make the examples concise. So just use that structure: situation, task, action, result, so that you can answer questions nice and concisely. Because again, speaking as an interviewer, it's sometimes can be hard if people are rambling and you're trying to kind of piece together the answer that they're giving you. Then it's harder for you to kind of score them well in your interview scoring. So do prep those answers so that when you come to deliver them, you'll be able to be really neat and tidy and concise in your answer. The other piece here is to prepare your why. So you've done that in your cover letter. So you've put in there what your motivation is, why you're applying for this job, why are you applying to this company, why are you excited about working with them. So there may well be a question about motivation. And so prep your answer for this. A really bad answer, if somebody says, why have you applied for this job? Please don't say, because I need a job, because I need money. Please say, because I'm really impressed with that product that you're developing and I really want to be part of the sales team that is responsible for developing the next thing. You show that you've researched, show that you're excited. And this is why it's really important, I think, to be selective about roles and be excited about them. Don't just go for anything if you possibly can. Obviously, I understand that times might be tough, but if you can, be selective about the kinds of roles that you're going for, because then that will show about in your in your excitement to be interviewed, and it'll show, your motivation will shine out of you. So I do think that is a pretty important ingredient to being successful at interview. I think the other thing is to bring your CV and all your written stuff with you. Again, you don't need to have it with you. You don't need to get it out or show it. But I think it's important to have it by you, near you, remind you, read it through, like they will have it in front of them likely. They'll have your CV and they'll have your cover letter. So if you've sent that in a month ago and you haven't looked at it since and you've forgotten what you said, and then they say, oh, you refer to this job that you did and you've forgotten all about it, that's not a great look. So refresh your memory about what you've said and what they will know about you. So have that to hand. Now, this almost goes without saying, but it's really important to check the details of the interview, the time, the venue. Is it online? If it's online, is your tech going to be working? Is your camera going to be working? Is your microphone going to be working? Check all those things, because you want to look as slick as possible when that interview comes around. If it's going to be in person, where is it? How are you going to get there? Make sure you get there on time, if not a bit early. I'm always early for everything, so I'm usually like too early, but you do not want to be rushing and flustered and hot and bothered and sweaty, worrying about getting there. So really look at the map. Where is it? How are you going to get there? How long will it take you to get there, so that you arrive in good time, nice and calm and cool and ready to go and ready to give of your best. So that is another area about the logistics. Another area which is, I think, pretty important is any special logistics that you might need for yourself to give of your best. Now, I've supported friends of mine with disabilities to get new jobs, and sometimes there are adjustments that make life easier for them to give their best. So if there are adjustments that are useful for you and important for you, then do ask for those. And a good employer should ask you if there's anything that you require to make to help you give your best and to reduce any barriers that you may face to doing that. I think it's really important also to make as good an impression as you can. So be really positive and smiley, meet their eye. If you're in person, shake their hand and try and give a really good first impression. I think first impressions matter. And then during the interview, look as engaged as you can, have a pen, make notes, nod, make eye contact, smile. And hopefully, by smiling, you will get smiles back, and then that will help to kind of ease your nerves. Another point I really wanted to make is that it's okay to take a pause before answering. So don't feel that they've delivered the question and you've immediately got to start speaking. I think it's quite strategic just to take a pause, just to get your thoughts into order before you start speaking. And you can use a bridging word, you could say something like, oh gosh, that's a really interesting question. Let me think about my best example. And then you go into your example. So you can buy yourself a little bit of thinking time before you start speaking. So that's another technique you can use to just still your mind and get your best answer kind of prepared before you start giving it. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about was tough questions. Now, I'm not a big fan of asking tough questions. I don't want to wrong foot my interviewee. I want people to give their best. But some interviewers do ask difficult questions. It's quite useful to think about what those might be. So a really common one is, can you talk us through your greatest weakness at work? One of the ways of answering that is to not say, oh, I'm really rubbish at blah, but is to say something like, well, I'm really working on X thing and trying to get better. and because really, if they're asking that question in good faith, what they really want to know is, are you learning? Because none of us are perfect, so nobody's going to say, I haven't got any weaknesses. Well, I hope they're not, and I hope no employer would believe them. If people do ask that question, I think it is an opportunity to talk about things that you're working on, things that you've, maybe you've had feedback about, things to work on from a previous employer. So you can be open on that. And what were the other things? Oh yes, another one is, tell me about a time you failed. Now, failure is a learning opportunity. So again, are there things that have happened in your career where you wish you'd done something different? And if what was the outcome and what was the learning? So again, I don't think that is a question to faze you, but just, have an answer up your sleeve, ready to go, just in case it comes up. Another great one is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And again, you can be honest and talk about that. Maybe if you've been researching the company, maybe what their plans are, and maybe you can sort of say, well, if I was successful in this job, I hope I would be involved in this new project or something. You don't need to be anxious about saying something like that, and just have an answer up your sleeve ready. Just finally, usually at the end of interviews, you get the opportunity to ask your own questions. So I think have some of those ready, have some questions ready. To have none smacks of lack of preparation, I reckon, lack of interest. You must have some questions. Sometimes you might, there might be practical questions like, what's the next steps and when will I hear back? Yes, absolutely fine. But also ask something. You could ask something like, what are the opportunities for training? Or, I've read about this product that you've got. Can you tell me a bit about that? Or sometimes people will ask, what do you like about working for this company? So you can come up with some questions there. It can be a really anxious time when you're looking for work, and it can be really demoralizing if you feel like you're going for lots of jobs and you're not getting anywhere. All I can say is keep going. You will get somewhere. You are excellent and you will have your time to shine. I'm absolutely sure of it. So really, all I can say is the very best of luck, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, all power to you. I'm so very grateful. And if you've liked what you've seen, you know what to do. Like and subscribe so you hear more from me. I'm early in my YouTube journey, so this is all new for me, and every time I get a new like or I get a new subscription, it really lifts my heart. So thank you so very much, and see you next time.